It's such a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you here with us. Would you feel free to share with us the story of Marissa? I just was captivated by that story.
I sure will. I will.
Thank you.
This instance happened back in 2001, and I've been caught up to heaven since 1996, so I had gone on several trips there. But this one was absolutely amazing, and I've never been the same since it happened. I was asked to clean an elderly woman's home by my pastor and his wife. They had just hosted out-of-town guests for a funeral. This funeral was not held at my church. It was on the other side of our town. I live in Florida. And so I was dusting away, and all of a sudden the Lord started speaking to me, and he said, I would like to give a message to Melody. And I keep dusting, and I went, well, who's Melody? I'm really used to hearing the Lord's voice. And he said, well, that's Marissa's mom. And I go, who's Marissa? And he said, that's the young girl who just died in the ski accident. You're standing in her grandmother's home. Well, I'm trying to figure all of that out, and he keeps talking to me. He said, I want her mother to know that I did not cause her death, but I had to choose whether I was done with her on the earth or not, and I chose to take her home. He said, I want her to know that she's living with her great-grandfather, and he's going to take her someplace to have fun. And that kind of amazed me also, that there'd be fun in heaven. Well, all of a sudden, I was no longer in front of the fireplace dusting. I was on a path in heaven. This is what always happens to me. I'm instantly there. On this amazing path in front of me, I saw three people. I knew immediately the girl had to be Marissa. I knew she was a teenager. She had strawberry blonde hair. She had blue eyes. But the gentleman she was with did not look like a great-grandfather. I have found that after going to heaven many times, you do not stay old when you go there. You look like you're around in your 20s, that wonderful ageless age where you can't really tell how old you are. And they had smiles on their faces. She was talking about her mother. She was saying special things that they did when she was younger, like she was going to kiss her mother on both cheeks when she saw her again. She wished she'd known that she could have told her goodbye, that she was a youth leader in heaven even though she was only 13. She kept speaking, and we kept walking along, and it's really hard to focus on anything in heaven. There's so many things going on. When you walk past the flowers, they sing to you. They change colors. Of course, the angelic beings are all around you. And in heaven, when you worship, you ride on your worship across the skies to the throne room. So I'm trying to not watch all this other stuff and focus on what they're saying. And I can tell you that I was really surprised, because I know when you go to heaven, you get a gown and a robe, but they were wearing tunic tops and pants. And I was amazed at this, and the Lord told me that you can't ride a roller coaster in a gown. And I didn't see a roller coaster at that point, and I said, there's roller coasters in heaven. He said, of course there is. The Rush is our biggest roller coaster. And we kept walking, and she kept talking about her mom and their life, and she said that she was up there cheering her on. I noticed that her outfit was blue and white, and we kept walking until we came to this place where I actually could see a roller coaster in the background. It was tremendous. It was probably like 300 or 400 feet high, and these cars would race to the top. They would drop, and everyone on it would raise their hands just like here. The only difference was angels were also riding this roller coaster. They would scream all the way down. It would fly back up, but then something very supernatural happened. It would leap from one track across the sky to another. So I think any of those people who are roller coaster enthusiasts, you're going to love going to heaven. Well, they kept walking and talking, and then eventually I was right back down instantly in front of the fireplace. I called our pastor's wife and told her what happened. She did give me Melody's phone number. They knew who these people were, although I had never met any of them. I went home as usual. I typed the entire message down that I had seen and heard, and then I called Melody and arranged to meet her at a mall. Sometimes the people would not want me to meet them in their homes, and she was pretty shaken up because this had happened the Friday after her funeral, her daughter's funeral. And so I had her sit there, and I just started sharing with her, and I read these words. I saw Marissa and her great-grandfather, and they were going into an amusement park, and he was going to take her on roller coaster rides. And all of a sudden, she turned white. I thought she was going to faint, and she just kept motioning me to keep speaking. And so I just kept sharing, and I said that I just kept reading, and I told her, you know, Marissa had said that when she gets home, she's going to kiss her mother on both cheeks. She was cheering her on, that she was a youth leader in heaven. And actually the Lord had revealed to me that the reason he had taken Marissa home was it was time for the youth in heaven to begin their rehearsals and plan their part in the marriage supper of the Lamb. They were going to have a big celebration event, and he had chosen her to be in charge of all the youth in heaven. That was an amazing position to give anybody, let alone a 13-year-old. So I just kept sharing with her mother all the things I had seen and heard her say. And then when I finished, I looked at her mom and I said, well, what do you think? And she said, I have never met you before in my life. You don't know my daughter, but you shared things that only Marissa knew. But the reason I know you really were in heaven was the day before my daughter's funeral, I felt impressed to look under her bed. And I found a journal she kept in 1995. And on one of the pages were written these words: last night I dreamed I died early. I went to heaven early. I met my great-grandfather. I went on roller coaster rides. I saw tons of mansions and they were wonderful, but God only gave me a peek, so as fast as a roller coaster, I fell back down. And then it was my turn to be shocked. I was absolutely amazed. She said, there is no way you could have known any of that information. And she said, when you said that she was going on roller coaster rides, I knew you had been to heaven. She was never the same again. I continued to share with her, prayed over her, and she had been told by the doctor she could never have children again. But the Lord let me share with her she would have more children, and now she is the mother of 2 twins. But isn't it amazing how God has made heaven not just a place to live and enjoy your life, but actually have fun? Oh, that was such an amazing experience. And you know, her mother did share a few more things, that from the time Marissa was 5, every day she dropped her off at school, she would kiss her mom on both cheeks. And Millie told me that every one of those little messages were like kisses from heaven, and that her life's never been the same since. And now she actually ministers to many people who've lost children. So it's been a real blessing to her life. It blessed me also.
That is an incredible story.
It's incredible.
I can't imagine the comfort. You know, when you think about the God that we've known, we've been serving him for decades, and the God that we know and we've come to learn about, he is one of his titles would be a God of comfort. Could you imagine the comfort that would have come to this mother that had lost her child just weeks before that, to have a personal word, so with such detail and such kindness and such goodness to that mom? Could you imagine the comfort that would have come to her? That's the God we serve. And that's why we're doing these interviews, because we want you to recognize the loving God and to come to know him if you don't already know him. And if you do know him, to be encouraged for the hope that is ahead of you and awaiting all of us that believe. I'm here once again with Kerr. And what a blessing it is. She's the president of One Quest International, an author of at least 2 books right now, Revealing Heaven 1 and Revealing Heaven 2. When I really encourage you to get them, and I think you're really going to want to once you see this interview. Just a moment ago, we ended up with one of her stories and testimonies of a young lady named Marissa, and the encouragement that came from that. If you haven't seen that video, I encourage you to go to the one we're going to entitle Marissa and hear more about it. But we're going to pick up right where we left off. You know, one of the things about these heaven experiences that she's had is that there's evidence that's following. She might, she's made it clear that she doesn't talk with the dead or anything like that, but when the Lord takes her to heaven, she observes conversations that's taking place and brings those back and with extreme detail writes them down. And so when she comes back and gives these messages to the people that had lost loved ones, the evidence and the comfort of the Holy Spirit is always there to confirm the word and the experience that she's had. And so would you like to share with us a little bit more about Marissa, Kat?
Oh yeah, it was such an amazing thing that happened, the evidence that God gave. You know, that heaven is real and it's also fun. But I think one of the other significant things is you don't lose your destiny if you're young and you die and go to heaven. God still lets you complete that. And obviously, Marissa's mom, Melody, had told me Another significant thing was that she was a youth leader in heaven, and even what she was doing to be put in charge of all the youth to help plan their part in the marriage supper of the Lamb. She told me that all her life Marissa had desired to be a youth pastor, and that's what she had planned on doing her schooling for that. And here she was, 13 years old, and God still chose her to be one in heaven. I thought that was amazing. Another thing is that she actually was a cheerleader in her middle school, and she said that she was cheering her mother on. I did mention that the tunic she was wearing was blue and white, and her cheerleading outfit was blue and white. Her favorite colors on earth were blue and white. Her whole room was done that way. They had done her welcome home service in blue and white also. Even the paper the thing was written on, it was done in blue and white. So that was significant for her mom also.
Oh,
there was many significant things that she mentioned. But the fact, she said, that Marissa had mentored children in her elementary school where she went, in her middle school, and for the first time our city actually closed both of those schools and bused 2,000 kids to Marissa's funeral. Over 300 of those children made a decision for the Lord because they loved her so much. They had seen Jesus in her life, and they loved her, and they wanted to be like she was, and so they accepted the Lord. I'm sure that blessed Marissa, who, by the way, I know was watching from heaven this whole situation, this whole incident. But her mom now ministers to so many people, and she doesn't even contact them. They find her, and she can minister the love and hope and peace that God gave her, that their children are in heaven. They're watching over their parents. They're not going to miss their destinies. Whatever gifts God gave them, they're going to get to have those and use them in heaven and throughout eternity. That's how good our God is.
Oh.
Another one that happened was when I was doing hospitality in our church. I did that for many years, and I was setting up the tables, and we had bought some beautiful long stem roses to decorate with, and I was arranging them, and the Lord said, I want you to take 11 of those and go give them to Vicki. Now Vicki, I did know she was the receptionist in our church. I had never really met her husband. He had passed away from cancer, I believe, and so I'd never had an opportunity to meet him. And he told me, I want you to leave them for her. It was actually Valentine's Day. And he said, I want you to put a note with them that her husband is still thinking of her. He still cares about her. He knows what's going on in her life. He's cheering her on from heaven. And so I picked them up and started back to the office. And all of a sudden, I wasn't walking down the hallway. I had stepped into heaven through the spirit realm. And I was absolutely amazed that I saw Jesus playing golf. I know you think this might be hard to believe, although I'm sure every golfer who belongs to the Lord will be absolutely thrilled to hear this story. He actually was playing golf with Jesus, and I knew that was her husband. He was calling him by his name, and I thought, this is absolutely amazing. There's golf in heaven. And of course, the person didn't respond, but the Lord did. He said, I want you to see John's home, and took me around and actually walked through this person's mansion. It was amazing. It had been built on the Crystal Sea. He had an 18-hole golf course all the way around his property. And by the way, don't think that you can go to heaven and play the same course all the time and win. They actually have a supernatural way to change the shape, the style, the length, and position of all the holes every time you play. And so I was overwhelmed, but I have learned after many times, it is a supernatural place, and you do supernatural things. But his home was absolutely beautiful. It was done like in a Greek style. I don't know what the dock was made out of, but it was this amazing material with all kinds of designs in it. People were coming by boat to come and enjoy his golf course. So you actually share your gifts that God gave you in heaven. You share them with everybody. And he was talking about his wife. You know, he was sorry that he had left early, that he had wanted to spend his life with her, that he couldn't wait for her to get to heaven because he had already seen her mansion, which was right next door. It was amazing. And so after hearing that, I was like all of a sudden back in the hallway. I was so excited. I wrote all this down for Vicki. I went to the front desk and left it with the roses. And later on, got a phone call from her. She was weeping. And I realized this was the first Valentine's Day since her husband had passed. And she said, this was so significant to me that my husband always got me roses on Valentine's Day, but he only got me 11. I'm overwhelmed. But she said the thing that was beautiful was he would tell me that I was his 12th American Beauty. And so he'd give her 11 roses and she would be the 12th one. And she goes, nobody knew that but my husband. And she said, I'm overwhelmed that my husband has a golf course. All his life he wanted to play. He was never able to physically do that. He'd watch the tournaments, and to know that God blessed him with one of the things that delighted him the most, it really moved her, and she was so blessed. So that story is also in my book, and she gave me a letter of confirmation to put with that story. But God is so good to let us know on earth. The whole purpose for these incidents is to let people know heaven is real, and that you don't miss anything when you belong to the Lord and He takes you home.
Yeah.
Isn't that precious?
Oh, it is so good.
I'm very moved by it.
Is there other folks that you've had experiences like that
There's
with?
quite a few. There's one that I might not go into a lot of detail with, but this person had done prison ministry for years and years, and had died during some physical activities, and I didn't know either one of those either. But our church had planned his funeral service. Sometimes people use our facilities because if they have a big family, they don't have a way to have it. And I had decorated everything in there in African style. It was really, really strange. And I thought, why in the world would He want me to do this? And the Lord said, well, this is what He loves. Took me to heaven, showed me His mansion. It was absolutely beautiful. It looked like a palace in an African setting. And there were actually African animals walking around in His property. I'm talking elephants, lions, tigers. And I thought, this is amazing. And He takes me into this person's mansion. And there he is dressed like a royal African king. And he was calling him Chief. That was a nickname. The Lord gives you nicknames when you go home to heaven. All the beautiful murals on his wall, when you walk past them, they came alive. Heaven is a supernatural place. And so he called me back to earth, and his wife and the family came in for the funeral luncheon I had decorated for. Were absolutely shocked to see that that's exactly the way he liked it, although they had not met me. And then later shared with his wife why God had done this, and that I had been to heaven and seen his place. And she was weeping. She goes, all his life he wanted to go on an African safari. I wouldn't go because I was afraid that I would be eaten by the animals. And she said, here he is, after all these years of prison ministry, God blessed him and gave him what his heart's desire was. Isn't that amazing?
That is the God we serve.
It is.
Wow, how exciting. Have you ever saw anybody, what happens to a person when they die?
Oh, absolutely. That was one of the first things I was shown. It really does dispel the fear of death completely. If you were able to know what happens to somebody when they die and go to heaven. And God showed me this literally. From the time somebody passed away and your spirit leaves your body, trust me, they're going to come and get you. Now, I know some people have had near-death experiences where they've gone up through portals or they've seen lights or were just caught up somewhere. But when you're going to die and go home to heaven and stay there, they will come and pick you up in a chariot, in these amazing transports. And I love it that God uses the redeemed who've passed on to heaven to pilot these transports. And I have found that God has such an amazing sense of humor. Usually the people who are in long-distance transport, or maybe they were tour guides, because guess what? That's what they're going to be doing. Only they get to take the people through the universe up to heaven. And so they'll come pick them up, carry them through the universe, see the planets, the nebulas, all the things God put out there for us to enjoy. And then they'll be approaching heaven. And then once they dock in heaven, they're escorted out. And sometimes family members are right there waiting on you. They're not going to wait till you get to the gate, although the gate's a little distance off. I've also found that Father Abraham many times greets you at the gate. I have seen him a couple times in heaven. But the most amazing thing, I think, is your journey to the throne room. If you have an intimate relationship with the Lord, they take you straight into the throne room. The only time you ever wait in line when you get to heaven is if you had a near-death, just right at the time of death, received the Lord. Then you may have to wait a while to get in there. But if you have a real relationship with the Lord, He will come and get you, escort you into the throne room, this beautiful white building that's got so much detail on it. You enter into this huge room with beautiful columns. There's angels flying over the throne of God. Some of them have fire coming out of their head. Those are the seraphim. Around the throne of God, there's these 4 living creatures. It talks about it in Revelation 4. It is in the Word of God. They have eyes in all of the feathers of their wings. They have eyes in their back, even in their hands and arms. They're there to declare the holiness of God. The throne is high and lifted up in the center of the throne room so that the people of God and His kids can be all the way around Him. There's 4 steps going up to the throne. You run up there anytime you want to be with Him. When you come home the first time, there'll be a sea of people, but when they see you coming, they will part like the Red Sea. And then you make your journey up to the throne. People are reaching out, just hugging you, congratulating you for coming home to heaven. And the Lord will walk you up to the Father, and for the first time you're going to see Him. He is beautiful beyond description. His face has the glory coming from it. I'm always moved when I talk about it, because the love, the waves of love that come from Him and begin to penetrate your being. And then you stand there and look into His eyes, so filled with love for you. He'll embrace you and you think, I'm never leaving here. I'm going to be with Him for all eternity. He'll turn you around and introduce you to everybody there, and He'll say, look, my son, my daughter, they've come back home to me. And you know you're home. It feels like home when you're there. And then the Lord will come over to you and hold you. And once you look in His eyes, filled with so much love, I think it's the most beautiful thing about the Lord. When I saw Him, He was about 6 foot tall. He has like dark curls all over His head, down to His shoulders. He's got a nice beard and mustache, and but the eyes filled with love are so awesome. He's very powerfully built, actually. He was a carpenter on earth, so He doesn't look meek or mild. He looks like a king who's ready to rule. And so I loved my experience there. But these people, when they come home to heaven, are so overwhelmed by the love. And then you come down and start dancing and celebrating in the throne room. Eventually your family is going to come and get you and take you to your mansion where you have a welcome home party. And so I think that's one of the most amazing things. But you know, living in heaven is an awesome thing. God even made a way for people to see and hear you from heaven. It's actually mentioned in Hebrews 12:1. There is a great cloud of witnesses who've passed on before us. So run your race, get the sin out of your life. Any weight that gets in your way, get it out of there so you can run that race and get that goal, because they want you to come home to heaven. When they look down over these, they walk into a beautiful building and up a staircase, they look over a balcony railing, they can see and hear you as close as your ceiling. And so it's an amazing experience. And I can even tell you what they say when they look down. They'll look down at you and they'll say, we declare you'll be the mighty man or woman of God. We declare you will not miss your destiny. We declare you become the living testimony of the saving power of Jesus Christ. So yes, you have loved ones up there cheering you on, declaring God's will over your life. So you need to make the right decisions. You don't want to miss going there. God is such an awesome God.
It almost makes you wonder, why would we want to stay around here?
Oh, I know.
When you see the Father, what's it like to see Him for the first time?
Well, I know that just standing there in front of Him, you're overwhelmed. You actually feel like you're just going to melt into a puddle. You're just so amazed to stand in the glory that's around Him. And all around His being is this amazing rainbow that comes from His person. It actually disappears up into the ceiling all the way around Him like in a big circle. And there's this gorgeous purple, this teal, a sapphire blue. You're amazed and overwhelmed just by being in the throne room. But I think that the fact that the Father is there welcoming you home, and a lot of people don't know this, but we came from Him. In the Word of God it says that He is our Father, we are His offspring, and to Him it's like you've come back home where you belong. And when people go home to heaven, they don't want to come back to earth. They're there living with the most amazing Father who's made all kinds of fun places for you to go. He's designed this beautiful mansion made just for you. Everybody does have their own, but you know what? You fellowship so much, you're never by yourself. And you live right next to your loved ones. And so God's made this amazing place for you to be with. And He'll actually come off the throne and do things with you in heaven. The Lord also does that. He comes and spends one-on-one time with you. It's not like you're a bunch of robots. You're never going to stop being you. Your personality will be even more enhanced. And I think one of the awesome things is you actually get to use your gifts in heaven. If you were a builder down here, an artist, if you design jewelry or fashions, or a baker or a chef, God has everything you need there in heaven to enjoy your gifts. And for an example I like to use is, if you were an artist on earth, you don't just get a mansion. He gives you a studio with everything in it. He gives you a gallery to show this beautiful artwork, and people come and admire it, and you actually give it away. Isn't that awesome that God made it that way in heaven?
Oh, so exciting. What if you're a musician?
Oh, if you're a musician, oh, God has really set you up. I'm sure that you definitely also have a recording studio in your mansion, and people do still make recordings in heaven, but in the highest tech you could have ever imagined. He gives you also places to perform in heaven for people to come and enjoy you. Sometimes you're actually asked to come to the throne room and perform with the band in the throne room or the symphonies of heaven. And when you play your instruments in heaven, you actually see music. You see ribbons of color coming out of the instruments to begin to weave these beautiful tapestries that become artwork. God has many amazing ways to capture our worship. But musicians love it in heaven. You're even better there. I'm sure you also will be teachers, because many people have always wanted to learn to play in their life here and never could. So you get a lot of other opportunities in heaven.
Have you seen instruments in heaven?
I've seen instruments in heaven. Actually, there's some I can't even describe, especially in the throne room. Sometimes I have like 1,000 drummers. I love the drums, and they'll start this war beat, and lightning literally shoots from the drums when you play them. And so there's many different things in heaven, many instruments, different sounds that just they sort of blend together sometimes, and you hear new sounds you've never heard before on earth.
Wow, what a hope. It is, you know, when you hear this message, it really does give us Christians that are watching and me listening a hope to really go through these difficult times, because I know there's a lot of people that are going to be watching these videos that are facing some really difficult times in their lives. And, you know, if anything, we just want to really encourage you to hang on, keep hanging on, because God has got something prepared for you that far surpasses your greatest expectations. And hopefully by watching these videos, you're getting just a little peek into what God has prepared for you. Thank you, and God bless you. And once again, we're with Kat Kerr. Her website is revealingheaven.com. Feel free to look that up, and she's got books and things available to you. God bless you.